So I've been looking forward to this one for a while. I'm joined by Ellie Barron and Russell Wilson. Me and Russell have already had our Tottenham chat, by the way, so there won't be any talk about Tottenham. We're both equally depressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we found out we've both got the same mugs. So we are keeping Tottenham afloat with our purchases. Ellie, I'd love to start with you. Thanks very much for coming on Get Out of Rap.
Thanks for having me.
When did you start in the industry?
So I started in the industry back when I was about 18. I started in a call center working for a bank and I loved it. I made like the best friends in that environment. And then I left that after a while, a long stint of, I think it was about 4 years. And then I went into nannying and then I just came back into it by joining Sonsei. I've had like the best fun so far. So yeah.
And when you took that first job at the bank at 18, what were the sort of factors that made you decide to choose? Did you know it was going to be on the phones?
Yeah, I knew it would be on the phones. And I think for me, I'm such a naturally chatty person anyway. So I was just like, yeah, that's perfect for me. Very bright, loud 18-year-old, loved it. And I think because I had friends who worked in there previously, I knew that it was a good place to make friends as well. So it was kind of all elements of what I would wanted to do. So.
And was it any of it like a shock to the system, or because of your friends, did you kind of have an idea, look, there's going to be not all customers are going to love talking?
Yeah, I did go into it with the idea of thinking, okay, this is what it's going to be. I think for me, the thing that shocked me most of working in a call center that young was the way that it was managed in person.
From your experiences of being managed in person,
yeah,
what were those like?
It felt like a very micromanaged environment. I found having the manager sat sort of at the end of the long desk watching you if you're on hold or if you're in wrap, it's quite difficult to feel comfortable in that role, I find. So that was the only kind of negative for me in that environment.
And that must have put you in good stead for now, because now is it team leader, team manager? What's your terminology at Sonsei?
Team leader.
Yeah, so now as team leader, those experiences, do they you kind of use them in how you manage now?
Massively. I think as well, a lot of people do have that call center mindset coming into a job like Sonsei, and it takes a while for them to kind of shift out of it. Like, it's okay, you can breathe, you're fine, don't worry. So yeah, I think that's quite a common thing that I see within my team. Is to see people kind of, if they're on hold with a customer, they'll kind of explain it for the first couple of weeks and then they naturally get used to that. It's okay to just take your time.
It's definitely
fascinating.
An element of trust as well, isn't there? These people are at home, so we employ our people, we trust them to do the right thing. Of course we've got systems and metrics to measure them by, but we trust them. And fundamentally, that's, they do a good job. We trust them to do the right things.
That was the word that was just foremost in my mind, was trust. That there is this kind of, and it's led to the perception of the industry that from a management point of view, you're all over everyone. You're managing their KPIs. You're sat next to them. You're interrupting on calls. You're right there. And actually, there's a couple of things. There's a study that says people, when they feel like they're being overly observed, do not behave naturally, do not perform at their best. Absolutely. And when you were talking about that kind of in-person management as a contrast to how you manage now, trust was the word that came into my mind straight away, Russell. That you kind of the whole basis of what you're doing is letting people do the job, and you can see based on all the outputs whether they're doing a good job or whether they need some support or not, rather than just being sort of stood behind them.
Standing over now. I think as well that's shown from COVID, because so many organizations trusted their people to work at home during COVID because they had to. Then you see them all bringing them back in the office now, and it's like, if that was happening to me personally, I'd be like, do you not trust me now? It was good enough for 2 years when I had to work at home to keep the organization going, but now you want me back in the office. Why? What's the value that's being added for bringing people back into the office? I know a lot of people that are being forced to go back in, and I'm particularly happy about it. So yeah, of course, there's collaboration and there's team ethics and things like that that it can be gained for bringing in a bricks and mortar, but you did it for 2 years or more in COVID, and it worked. You know, not many organisations or contact centres failed during that period. So yeah, I think it's used as an excuse to bring people back in and micromanage them, to Ellie's terminology earlier. That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Because as individual frontline team members, they've evolved during the pandemic, but then if they're asked to come back, there's lots and lots of people saying that the management has reverted back to that kind of more micromanagement, rather than going, hey, we did survive, we did do okay, we trusted you, we let you get on with it, we don't need to kind of manage you to the minutiae, we don't need to kind of go be up all in your grill. And so that kind of before we talk about how you manage now, Ellie, I'm just really, your journey then, so you left the industry and then did nannying, and then coming back to Sonsei, I imagine is quite not common, but I imagine is, Sonsei have always struck me that you as a company can get people that have maybe had some experience, but now they want to do the same type of work, but they don't necessarily want to come into a contact center. Was that part of your decision making when you came back?
Yeah, I think for me, I wanted something where, obviously with the pandemic, we get comfortable in our little safe bubble of home. And I think I wanted something where I could have the flexibility to be able to come and go as I needed to, but also still make those steps in my career plan for myself. And I do find that in a bricks and mortar environment that it was harder to progress. So with Sonsei, I started, I think it was around it was around May, and then a few months in, I then got the position to be a team leader. So there was a lot of trust that I'd built with my manager to be able to put me forward for that. So I think, that massively did play a factor into why I wanted to come back into it, because I think, as everyone does, when you see something that's offered that's, flexibility and being able to do whatever schedule you'd like to do within reason with the client, it's sometimes feel a little bit too good to be true once you've had that experience. But you soon see that it is the way of just Sonsei, and it's like something that I've not really ever experienced at all in this kind of environment.
That's fascinating. There was moments where you're thinking, hang on, is this a trap?
I did. Did a lot of reviewing, and I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't signing up. I think I said in my interview, I was like, okay, so I pick my own time. I can, let my manager know if I can't work this day, and I book it all myself. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So it takes a little while to get comfortable, but as soon as you're settled, you're in.
So Russell, there's people thinking, there must be a catch. Do I have to sign up to say that I support Tottenham or something?
It's not that bad, Martin. Crikey. Yeah, no. Listen, we work on a micro scheduling basis, so it's self-selection. The hours get released to the home agents, and then they go in for half an hour segments across the profile across the week, and they'll choose the shifts that they want to work up to their contracted hours, which can be anywhere, depending on the line of business, from 20 to 40. So it flex according to that. Now, I go into every training group and I say to every training group that I go into, this is flexible. It can work for you. Takes a bit of getting used to, as Ellie said. You're never going to get 100% of the shifts that you want, okay? Because in reality, you've got people going in and choosing shifts. So you're never going to get the perfect pattern. But if you get 70% of what you want, it's excellent, because you've got that, we call it life-work balance, where you can fit things around your world, so if you need to do the school run, you can work on that. If you're a gym person who wants to go to the gym every morning, you can choose a later shift. And if you're a night walk and you don't want to get up in the morning, you can choose late. It gives you the flexibility to fit around your lifestyle. There are going to be shifts that you don't particularly want, and you're going to have to take the rough with the smooth, but 70% of your shifts is generally what people get. And that gives you so much more flexibility than you'd have if you were, first of all, driving into a contact centre. If you think of the old shift patterns across the day, there might have been a bit of flexibility, but you start at 8, finish at 4, 9, 5, 10, 6, something along those lines. You can go in, do 3 hours, go away, go to the gym, take your dog out for a walk, come back an hour later, do another hour before you do the school run. You can make it fit around your lifestyle. And that's where Sonsei is a huge success, and where people's lives and the Sonsei world fit together. And that's where it really is a success for the people. So it's good.
And did that then, Ellie, kind of take some getting used to, or did you sort of just flourish with it straight away?
I didn't flourish with it straight away. No, it definitely does take some getting used to. I think the term that we use for booking hours is fast as fingers first. So it's all released at kind of the same time for the account. So it's a very fair process for hours, but sometimes I wasn't the fastest all the time. So I think you kind of just take it as it comes. And also just having that time of being in work mode and then being able to step out. I never really had that, especially with being a nanny, when you've got babies around you and stuff like that. It's, it's 24/7 really. So having that ability to kind of be in work, get what I needed to do done, and then go and take a breather, it was like, I almost felt like, oh, my manager's going to call me and say, hi, what are you doing? And I'm going to be out. It was quite a weird concept, but now it's just the flexibility. I mean, it improves every area of your life once you have that, like Russell said, the life-work balance rather than work becoming the sole focus of your life.
Not me personally, but you met Steve Mosso, who's the brains and the ideas behind our technology, and he's working on a concept to make it better for people when they're booking hours. So you'll get you can not choose your hours in advance, but it will take a preference and it will start to schedule for you, and then you choose a percentage around that. So he's working on some enhancements to our systems that will just make that fastest finger first less of a deal breaker really, and it just becomes easy for people to book their shifts. But as Ellie said, people get it after a couple of weeks of doing it, and your schedule gets released every week. We've got 1,500 agents across different lines of business. They're not all bidding for the same 9 till 5 shifts. They're all, and they get it. And we've also, if you don't get it, and I say this to the training group, there's people to support you, whether that's your team leader, me or service delivery manager, whoever. They'll help you. So if you really do get stuck, go and see them. We're a people first organization, so we can help you. We put you first, and we'll help you. Change your shifts, swap your shifts. There's always people looking to swap shifts, like any contact center. So things change. You need to do that. So we help people do that.
I think that people first approach is evidenced then just by how you're saying you're looking to develop that shift, but also with the business expectations around the percentage. I love that. Just kind of saying, if you can meet us at we're 70% of the time, you'll get what you want. 30%, it might not be your ideal. I think people will absolutely. Well, do people appreciate that, Ellie?
100%, especially with what Russell said about then if they get perhaps stuck, or if they're on holiday and they can't book their shifts for the next following weeks, it's a very quick process to be able to go in and help them. And I think because they're so used to having to be on like a set schedule, it's like quite refreshing for them as well to have that approach. So yeah, that's massively appreciated across all teams.
Yeah, we've just launched some new home agent surveys, which are there's a weekly and a monthly version. So we revamped the questions probably about 2 months ago, and one of the questions in there is, what percentage of your shifts did you get this week? Or the percentage of shifts you wanted, what percentage of the ones you got? And it comes in around 75% most weeks. It's pretty static. So people are definitely, listen, there will be some people that come in at 60 perhaps, and some will come in at 80, but as an average across over 1,000 people, that's pretty decent.
So Ellie, you were on the phones for, did you say 4 months?
I think it was around 3 or 4, yeah.
And then you went for a team leader position.
When I was in my training group, I remember with Russell saying he comes into training groups, I remember the first question, because we did like a bit of a Q&A with Russell, which was nice as well, because again, bricks and mortar, you don't have that kind of contact time with people higher up. So I think one of the first questions to Russell was, what's your job and how did you get there? And I wanted to know the complete progression of his whole career plan. So yeah, I was on the phone for I think 3 to 4 months, and then I'm just keen bean. I was ready to go, because I think once you've had that experience before as well, when you come back into it, you want to do it right. You've learned from the mistakes that you've made probably in the past. So yeah,
I love that. So Russell, what has been your career progression?
So it's a long one. But so I spent, I've been 20 years in financial services, contact center-ish type roles. I worked in an insurance broker for 10 years. Or 11 years. My first job was writing cover notes, paper cover notes. That's how old I am.
With a
and then
quill.
I went and, pardon?
With a quill.
Yes, with a quill, with my ink. Yeah, I was dipping it in. And then I went on to work as a team leader in a different organization. I went to an insurance company rather than a broker. And then I went from team leader, where did I go? Contact center manager, ops manager, head of direct insurance, head of contact centers, and then I went on to a head of operations for a financial services company, and then I ended up at Sonsei for the last 12 months. So I've done, there's nothing better than starting on the phones, in my opinion. I did a lot of years on the phones, good fun. And back to Eddie's point, there's nothing more social than a contact center. In your younger years, some of the best years of your life. And really good fun. And there's a lot of stigma. You talk to people and they go, "Oh, you work in a contact center." Oh, the bloke from Wales, they always go, "No, that's not how it works." It's a great career path. A great career path for people, and I think good organisations will have that career path mapped out for good people. And Sonsei is definitely a promotion from within approach, and there's lots of opportunities, not just in Sonsei, in lots of contact centres. I think it provides a great career for people. And yeah, I've spent 20 years in it, so it's done me well.
And we actually met, didn't we, across the table doing judging many years ago?
Yeah. So fortunately, I do judging for the UK Contact Centre Awards and the European, like you, Martin, and just part of the CCMA, and fantastic opportunities to go and see the best contact centres and meet great people. A load of the people that I'm good friends with, or I need ideas, I send them a message, and it's a contact center is a really open environment for sharing great ideas, and you don't often see that in other sectors. So we are, I can go to a retail contact center and I can ask them about something, for an insurance world, and we're not competitors. It's not like I'm stealing their IP and their rating or stuff like that. It's just about how you serve your customers well and how you treat the people well. And I think if you get that right, you're not far away from having a great contact center.
Yeah, very, very true. I couldn't agree more. So Ellie, 4 months in, you go for the, was it like an assessment center?
For a team leader?
To get in the team leader job, yeah.
No. So all at home. So I didn't have to go anywhere. So what happened with that was I would have a meeting. I think I had an interview. The first part of the interview, which was just to get to know me, what history do I have, and then it was then like a role play, and then I was luckily selected.
Role playing competency based questions, isn't it? It's normally done.
Yes,
for
yeah.
So you get the job, and how many people were you initially responsible for?
Initially responsible for 31. We were quite a new account when we launched, so I had 31 newbies, which was throw yourself in, Elle, you'll do fine, and I learned a lot through that experience, and now I think I have about 14, 15, so yeah, halved. Now we've got another lovely team leader that's joined.
Well, like Russell, I spent a good few years on the phone, and then was team leader, and initially was an absolute disaster, if I'm honest, when I first became team leader, because I made the mistake of thinking my team was 15 miniature versions of me. So how I communicated, how I motivated, and then when they didn't respond, or not all of them responded, most of them didn't respond the way I wanted to, I was stuck. I was thinking, oh, what am I going to do? But that was with 15. I think for 31, How did you approach that?
I've learned a lot, Martin. I definitely have learned a lot. I think I had a great support system with the other team leaders, so I wasn't completely on my own, thrown in. And because I'm a new team leader, so this is all still quite very new to me. I think you kind of it's the same element of trust. You kind of learn how people are, especially when you're working virtually. You're stepping into their home each time you're communicating with them. So I think each time that I was doing huddles and getting to know everyone, you'd kind of just use those people skills to kind of see how people would like to be approached. But the support that I had from now my SDM and the other team leaders, it was a very much let's all chip in and give advice where possible. And I was asking a lot of questions.
So
I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, Ellie was a team leader on a brand new account, which only went live, I think it was around January this year. So it was in the ramp up phase. So we had a lot of people going through training programs. So yeah, there was a lot of support that we put in through their graduation base, not just from our side of things, but obviously the line of business that Ellie works on with some of their SMEs in there supporting as well. So very much, it was quite overloaded from a people point of view. From 31, that's not how we normally operate. But as we were going through that ramp up phase, it was definitely a bit overloaded because we had the SME support. But Ellie's she's done exceptionally well in a short period of time, and especially on the line of business that you work on, Ellie, because actually it's customer relations, which is one of the obviously a bit more tricky than a standard sales and service or something in those lines. So yeah, you've done very, very well in a short space of time.
Thank you. And it was also great to have that previous experience as an agent, because then they were coming to me as if, how did you feel when this happened in training? Or did you find that the training, felt like this? Or it was a good environment to kind of just be people learning. And I was very open at the beginning that I'm learning as well as you. So let's all kind of get to one goal of just settling and getting comfortable on the account altogether.
I think that's really true. I think that kind of, it's sharing a vulnerability with your team as well around let's learn together. And I think sometimes new team leaders make the mistake of thinking that somehow they have to know everything, and that admitting that they don't is a weakness, when in fact it's a strength. It brings your team closer to you by saying, look, I don't know, but let's find out together, because it'll be good for all of us. That if so now with 14 and 15, the makeup of your team, is it a mixture of people that are brand new to home working and some that are experienced?
Yeah, we've got a mix of both. So we've got people that have always been in the environment of, whether it's working in retail or working in other bricks and mortar environments, and then we have people over the pandemic who would work for perhaps like the NHS when they were doing track and trace and stuff like that, so it kind of eased people in a little bit. But for the people who found it completely new, you could tell that it was a bit like, oh my god, what's going on? But it's nice to see them settle now. I think a lot of my team, they are very settled and comfortable, and we've had that time of getting to know each other and get comfortable. So it's good to see the difference and shift in them.
So based on your experiences of being an agent in a bricks and mortar contact center to now, what's a standard day like? How do you interact with your team? Maybe you can just talk us through the day that you have.
Yeah, I think for me, my schedule as being a team leader is quite flexible. So what I will do a week in advance is always check when the majority of my team is on shift and when they start. I always like to start with them. So I would typically do that a week before, and then we would do huddles at the start of the week, get to know how everyone's weekend was, how everyone's feeling. I think for me, the biggest importance and within Swansea is the use of webcam. Being able to see how people are rather than just having it virtual and type in. Anyone can say anything, can't they? So I think having webcams on and just being crazy and getting everyone energized for the week. And then we'll do weekly coaching sessions with each agent. So I've got a lovely DTL who will take on half the team, and then we'll alternate throughout the week and throughout the month.
So those, you touched on something there, just kind of you must have great observation and sort of people skills about being able to, if you're in a huddle, maybe get a sense, because people always talk about, oh, well, if you've got people at home, how can you tell from a body language point of view? You can just tell sometimes when someone's not quite there. But I imagine that what you're saying then is you can still do that through the use of a webcam, and you can tell if someone's not quite on it.
Yeah, definitely. Straight away from the beginning as well, before I even kind of knew my team. I think it's just being human and just treating people how they want to be treated, and then also seeing how they respond as well. You can always tell when someone's feeling a bit, low, their posture's a bit low, or they're wearing their pajamas maybe, or you can tell with the environment as well, with having a background. It's nice to see people when they're feeling their best. You can definitely tell.
I think one of the key things is about being human. We talked about trust, and we talked about getting to know people and making decisions. Just be a human about it. And if you see someone's a bit low, you're not going to talk. You're not going to talk to them in front of the group, but you'll just follow up with them, find out what's going on, and whether that's in bricks and mortar or at home, and you're having that webcam conversation. It's just about being human. And if I pick up the phone to my mum and I phone her up, I can tell in her voice that she's not quite at it, and you just think, oh, okay, well, and you have that same sort of feeling, especially when you get to know your team, their personalities, and you know what good looks like for them, and the vibe in their voice and the energy. And if they haven't got that one day, just make sure you keep an eye on them, same as you would in a contact center. Just you go and have a touch point with them, you walk around and see them. We do exactly the same from home. Just put a slot in, go and talk to them. We use our live desk, which is kind of the hub to keep us all together. We use that to have individual conversations, group conversations. So I think it's just having those points of contact and that doesn't matter if that's Ellie talking to a team, me talking to myself, delivery manager, the service delivery manager talking to the team leaders. It's the same. It's having those good contact points on a frequent basis with your team. And Ellie, as a team leader, has to organise her life a little bit around her team, because they'll pick shifts all over the spot. So she needs to make sure that her world kind of revolves around them a little bit. Of course, there's lots of overlaps, so they're able to do that. But yeah, you need to be flexible and human with it. And I think that's just the approach you have to take, and we certainly take.
Yeah, just to touch on as well with the overlaps and me kind of moving my schedule to fit them. When I'm not in, live desk is such an important and integral part of that, because we'll have hosts on live desk who will be looking after everyone on the live desk. We'll have floor walkers to be able to answer any of their questions to do with the account. So even when I'm not in, they still have that regular support and that contact time if they need it. So yeah, live desk is very much integral to that process.
And is that the equivalent then? Because I imagine this is a question you get often asked quite often, is what's your equivalent of an agent putting their hand up and going, help me? Is it through live desk?
Yeah.
The live desk, there's lots of functionality within it, but from a referral point of view, you say someone down the end with a hand up, team leader goes scuttling down the office to go and help them. Live desk, you type it in, you can deal with it like you would on a web chat. You can deal with 3 or 4 at the same time, so you can deal with all the conversations, are grouped and tagged, etc. There's loads of stuff. You talk to Steve about live desk, we talk to you for hours about it. It's brilliant. That's just one part of it, but that's where people get their help, their support from, and it can be taken out of live desk into a one-to-one conversation. You can get teams into it if you talk face-to-face. So yeah, but that's your hands up point of view from live desk, gives you that.
Not even just for questions with the account as well. So we also have a function which is like a mood meter. So for all of the agents, it's very much blank. They just see the color change. But for management, we can see who is scored. It's kind of out of 10. So they will score their mood out of 10. I think it refreshes every hour, 2 hours. So we can always have a visual of how they're feeling. And it's almost like reading the room in a bricks and mortar environment. You're just reading the room virtually, which I love that tool. It's great.
That's amazing. So based on that, then you might go, do you know what? I need to check in on Russell. He's probably low mood anyway because of Tottenham scores, but
on a Monday. Absolutely.
But you would see a low score and go, right, I've got to make sure I check in on this person.
Yeah. And it's also about the way that you approach it as well. I would never go in and go, you scored a 2, because I think that would then make them think, I'm never doing that again. So I think it's just checking in, being human, and just saying, like, hello, just checking in, how you doing? Similar to how you would if you just went to go and grab a coffee at the coffee machine. We would emulate that virtually by doing that with that knowledge. So it all goes hand in hand.
So I'm getting this impression that I think the emotional intelligence levels that you and your other team leader peers must be really, really high to be able to kind of navigate and sense all that and think, right, like you said just then, the temptation must be to intervene, when in fact you go, okay, I'm going to take a moment, make it natural, think about the right time to talk to this person, but I'm just going to keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
And I guess this is, again, to reiterate your point about people first, this kind of human approach. We might not be sat next to each other, but we're still going to exhibit and have to go over and above probably that kind of care for each other.
Yeah, it definitely is. Definitely is. I think it's easier to just kind of, if you're a tactile person in office, like, are you okay? How are you getting on? Whereas, bringing that into a virtual environment, it sometimes can be, especially as a new team leader, you learn by making those mistakes of going, scored a 2. So it's easy to kind of find your feet with that, I find.
And for coaching sessions, Russell, you said frequency, and Ellie, I imagine that it's by being consistent and turning up and doing coaching sessions, it helps people who maybe at first it doesn't quite feel natural to do a coaching session virtually, but then the more that you do it, the more that people are far more relaxed. I think we all kind of saw that in the pandemic after the initial, oh, isn't this exciting, that we're all going to, there's a novelty factor. Then when that wore off, I certainly found there were some of my team who were less comfortable initially doing coaching sessions through this kind of medium. Do you just have to kind of trust in your process, trust in your support and your technology, and just keep going?
Definitely. I think for me, because we're stepping into their home and their office at home, they feel comfortable and safe at home. But then it's kind of like that. It's like someone coming in going, how are you getting on with your work? How are you doing? Are you all right? It is uncomfortable for the first couple of times, and it's easy to kind of settle them in as just, how are you doing? How are you finding this? It's all a bit strange, isn't it, if you've not done it before? And just having that approach of, it's a bit bizarre, but you're doing well. You're calling your customers. Your hold times really well, or whatever your KPIs are on your account. It eases them in. And I think as well, talking about work around, obviously in an office, you shut the door and you're away from your family home, but you're still in that environment. So that can also be a factor as well.
Yeah, I think certainly when I do one-to-ones with my line reports, I mean, I always open up, how you doing? What's going on? It's more of sometimes you spend the whole time just talking about life rather than work. And that's also important as well. We do have bits that we have to cover off, of course, but if you don't get to them in that session, we have to make sure that we've got that personal element for our conversations as well. So it's not straight in, right, KPIs, da. It's how you doing, and you need that engagement. And to your point, we don't measure their emotional intelligence, but our team leaders are great. That they're real people. So they have to be in our virtual world. So I think it's really important to have that. I don't want to say human side, but the human element to the conversation. Be a person first, then a manager second. So.
I imagine as well, Ellie, you have to be super organized around your calendar, everything.
Definitely, which is a very good skill to learn in life. It is one that, I feel like I'm forever evolving with my organizational skills, but I think you just got to roll with the challenges that may come up, or changes in your schedule, as long as you're prioritizing your time and your people first. That's what will make you a great team leader, and then everything else will fall into place.
do you have some of the maybe misperceptions then about having a totally at home workforce around how I'll just throw one at you now, is like how do you recreate that team culture of everyone sort of having a laugh together? Do you have that set in the week, or what do you do?
Yeah, so that would be in our weekly huddles. So it depends. If over Christmas we had like a whole engagement focus on, let's share baking ideas, let's dress up everyone's pets and vote for the best one. You can always bring that element into a virtual world. We do things like polls and see how people want to, what topic do they want to talk about in huddles and stuff like that. So you can always bring that in. And the engagement side of things, I think people enjoy a lot more because it's something that's not work focused, but also still including you in that work.
We also have in live desk. So a live desk is a function for work and the questions, but we also have social channels within there where people just come on and talk about how bad Spurs have been this weekend, and it's just like the conversation you'd have with a guy next door. You have them online, and they can take individual chats away if they want to, but there's a social channel in all of our live desks for people to engage as a team, and it's one of the things that shocked me was how much, when I come to Sonsei, I'm used to managing virtual teams across various parts of the UK, but they're all centralized. They're all, you could bring them in together, no problem. Yeah, we want a meeting in Chesterfield, one of my old sites. You just come into the office and we do it all together. They don't do that at Sonsei, but they are a team, and it was really refreshing when I joined. I remember my first meeting. There was someone down in Devon, there was someone in Wales, someone in Scotland, someone in Northern Ireland, and someone else was in Norwich, but it didn't feel like that. And I was kind of stepping into this world thinking, it's going to be a bit odd, but it wasn't. It really works. And when I go into the training groups, they're like little families in training. They get so close within that training environment. And then you kind of split them up into their teams sometimes. And oh my God, I'm not with Johnny anymore. But they soon become part of that other team, and they make real efforts to make them, through the onboarding and the training process, team leader and team gets involved to make them feel part of it. But yeah, it doesn't take them long to adapt. And I was quite surprised at that when I joined. It's just a culture of being a team. Even though we're virtual, we don't let anything get in the way of us doing what you'd normally do in a contact center just because we're virtual. And actually, I think sometimes we do it much better, but we don't let any of the distance get in the way. So it's surprising to me. It's really good.
I imagine as well, Ellie, that you have to be really, as well as organized, but you have to be creative. So you can utilize your team and their ideas, but you must always be thinking, right, what am I going to be doing in the next huddle and the next huddle? Because again, if you think about everyone else's experiences in the pandemic, lockdown 1, everyone's playing bingo. You're talking to your family, you're doing quizzes. Lockdown 2 or 3, you're like, oh, do you want to play bingo with the family? No, I do not.
Leave me alone. Stop baking banana bread. It definitely is that. It is always thinking and always trying to evolve with the team. I think as well, you kind of base it around what their likes and dislikes are as well. So it's all collaborative. It's not just, one idea and we run with it. It's always chops and changes as people chop and change in life. So yeah, it is. You always have to be, forward thinking.
I imagine as well that you have to be so sensitive to being inclusive, so that if, and I'm trying to think here now about, I can remember, and we've probably done it today, me and Russell, but I remember being told by a team member that a lot of the chat or anecdotes that I used were football based, and that excluded some people in the team that didn't like football. But because I was kind of in my moment talking to the team, I didn't even really notice that. Whereas if they were on a screen and I could see them all, I could tell whether what I was saying was hitting the mark or not. So you have to be really sensitive to people, to including everyone in in creating that team ethos.
Definitely. definitely. I think even with the Christmas engagement that we had for people who didn't celebrate Christmas, we still had areas of the engagement that they could still be involved in. Anyone can bake, whether you're good or not is a different question, but everyone can bake. So it's just about getting people involved. And I think for those people who may find virtual working, when you're new to it, it can be quite isolating sometimes. So having that engagement and having that support, I mean, with Sonsei, we have EAP, so we're able to, you know, give that external channel to kind of have that outlet if they are feeling isolated. But I do find that the trust that you build with your agents, they come to you when they feel a bit isolated, or if they feel, you know, a bit left out, or they perhaps don't like something. It's easy to be confident behind a screen, and then when they get on camera, it's, you know, you see the person and it opens up a whole different channel of communication.
Do you find as well, because I always thought this, and then I found some studies around it about how going back to the fact that you can choose shifts and go and do some stuff that you want to do at home, so it's not all wedged into a weekend, that your team's work when they're working is better, is more focused, they're fresher, because I know there've been studies that in a contact center where we're just asking people to do an 8-hour shift, that even the most committed people, and I can remember myself, I was committed, but by the end of the shift I felt like my brain was just dead. This kind of being able to go, well, yeah, I want to go to the gym, I'm going to go to the gym, and then I'm going to do this. Does that kind of, do you see that in your teams?
Definitely, 100%, because where you are working from home, it pushes you almost to go for a walk, or go get some air, or, you know, to do those things that perhaps you wouldn't do if you were sat in an office 8 hours a day. And then, okay, after that, I've got to go to the gym, do the food shop. You have to cram so much in to a normal work schedule. So it's nice to have, and to see agents where you can kind of see maybe they've had a difficult call, but they've got a long break coming up because that's how they've put their shift. They come back completely refreshed. It's like a new day each time.
Yeah, we also did some work on kind of the optimum shift length, because people book in blocks. We have good data on, right, how productive are you in an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, whatever it be. You know, we've got some people that want to work 3 10-hour days where it allows, where it's possible. So we were able to look and say, actually, when you hit that mark of 5.5 6 hours, you start to become unproductive. To your point, Mike, it doesn't matter how dedicated you are. You're a person that gets fatigued, and, you know, you relentless. It might be calls, it might be a busy Monday. So we were able to look at it and say, right, okay, let's try and talk to the team. We don't want you booking over 6 hours, because you become not just unproductive but fatigued, and it's not good for your well-being. So you know, use the breaks in the day to refresh yourself. As Ellie said, go and have a walk with a dog. You know, go to the gym if you want. Go and do the shopping, or whatever takes your fancy during that day. Or it's that life-work balance. You can make it work for you and come back refreshed. And the utilization, without getting too technical, of our guys is a lot more productive than a bricks and mortar, where they're not working that set 8-hour shift plus the commute either side. These guys generally walk up the stairs, log on 10 minutes before their shift, get cracking, log off, go and do something, come back on, log on. So they're really productive in those short bursts.
Well, look, I think I've been lucky enough to spend some time with you guys, and today's just kind of strengthened that feeling that you absolutely have the right outlook, that it's people first, that even just your terminology like life work balance, that has really come across today. So Ellie and Russell, thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure people are going to want to contact you afterwards to pick your brains about stuff, how to do this effectively. So I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Thanks for having us.
Martin, it's been great.
Thank you very much.